Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Kerrilynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans. If you would like to check out all of the amazing hosts and shows that UPRN has, please head to uprntalkradio.com. There is all of our, there's thousands of archives on the show. You can meet all of the different hosts. There is something for everyone with UPRN. There's all kinds of new shows and fun things that are shifts and changes that are happening, and you guys are going to want to stay on top of everything. So please check all of that, all of our shows out there, and on all of our socials. If you are new here to Spirit Switchboard, my name is Kerrilynn. I am a psychic medium based out of Ontario, Canada. I have been able to connect with the other side since time I was little, and this has been a full-time career for just under 20 years, which is really kind of almost hard to say. that is like the length of time that we've been doing this, but I love it and I appreciate it. We do have some fun things I want to mention. If you follow along on social media at all, I do this thing. I think it's almost 8 years now that we've been doing it. It's called the 12 Days of Giving, and I do it at Christmas time. And the first 12 days, it's just giving whatever I feel like we're going to do. Sometimes it's paranormal investigation spots there, sessions, tickets for events that I'm going to be doing. And tomorrow, we're going to be doing the first of the 12 Days of Giving Victorian seance with a modern twist. So the four folks that won spots are going to be coming tomorrow to do that. And I'll put some pictures up on social media for you guys. And I'm excited about that. I'm also participating with the Lake Superior Paracon again this year in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Those tickets, the early bird tickets are up. It's a great lineup of speakers and events. I hope that I see you guys there. And stay tuned. We have some of the folks that are going to be speaking lined up on Spirit Switchboard, and I'm looking forward to having them on as guests here. Hi, Stephanie Malo. Stephanie, you need to come back on the show as well, too. If you guys are listening, Stephanie was a guest. She is the author of a series of books called Stopping to Smell the Flowers. She has new cards out as well, too. So if you are into oracle cards, tarot cards, affirmations, all of that yummy stuff, the books, the cards as a set are brilliant, and you can head to Stopping to Smell the Flowers over there. Wizard Radio FM. Hi, James. Thank you for being here. Please head to his YouTube channel if you're needing some groovy music to listen to. Denise Mitz. Heather Stewart McLaughlin, thank you for being here. Heather Stewart McLaughlin is the owner of Come to the Forest. Please check out all the wonderful things that she has going on there as well, too. Astrolight Paranormal. Hi, Julie Dow. Victoria Cheeseman is Astrolight Paranormal. She is going to be coming on the 25th of April. You guys are not going to want to miss that. Oh, good stuff. We're going to have to figure out a date and have you on. Michelle Wilfong, thank you very much for being here. Michelle Wilfong has this fabulous TikTok, My Haunted Apartment. So you can check that out as well, too. Sandra Zahara, I'm excited that you are going to be back in Thunder Bay this year. Hi, Michelle Plummer. Thank you for being here. I am going to... if you guys are a fan, because we are all fans of our dear Laura Lee Potvin, host of the Angel Rock on Monday and the Thing at the Foot of the Bed on Thursdays. And she has one of her dearest friends, Varla Ventura, who is going to be my guest tonight. And she has for the longest time. So she has Varla on, I think, seasonally. With every shift of the season, she has Varla on, and she has been wanting to get the two of us together for quite a while, and we were able to make today happen. And I'm going to bring her out in just one sec. Hi, Contested. Thank you. Gail, you are so welcome. So Gail and Mel Willis are Lucky Paranormal. They have also been guests on the show, and they are our hosts for the Lake Superior Paracon, and they really do work so hard to put on a great event for everybody. So please check out their YouTube channel and their website for the tickets. So, Varla Ventura, author, rotten botanist, which is a whole title that I think, just deserves an award in itself. Lover of all things strange and odd. Please welcome Varla to the show.
Hi.
How are you
Thank
doing?
you. I'm doing great. Thanks for that lovely introduction.
You're welcome. I thank you for making the time and sharing time and energy with me and all of our listeners here. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It really has been a bit of time. Like, I think she started talking about you a year ago. You
Yeah.
really should meet Varla. You really should connect
That's
with
my
Varla.
memory too. Yeah, she wanted us to all go to the Paracon that you were just talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Buddy Jeff.
Oh
So
yeah, and our buddy Jeff. Yeah.
our buddy Jeff. So maybe next time. I know that they took a photo though and sent it to you. Like, look at who's
yeah,
here.
just to make me jealous.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do hear that you have other plans, which may be more fun than participating in a Paracon. You're going to, have some personal time up there, and
with Laura and Del. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is its own bag of fun, which will be brilliant. I know that the new book, we're going to talk about the new book, but you also have a zine out that you did with Jeff Belanger. So I would really like to talk about the zine.
Yeah.
Not that I don't love the Enchanted Plant book. I was like, I feel like a little kid at Christmas, and I'm going to try really hard to not be perimenopausal ADHD the whole time.
Hey, we'll be together
in a million different directions, but I really am excited. I was so excited when I saw what you had wrote about, what you contributed about, because this is the third installment of Shadow Zine by Jeff Belanger. Yep. So can you just share with everybody what Shadow Zine is all about? I don't have a copy because apparently he's working on getting shipping to Canada.
Yes. Well, this issue 3 just came out just a couple weeks ago, beginning of April, and issue 2 was beginning of March, and issue 1 was beginning of February. So Shadow Zine, it's a zine. It was like the brainchild of Jeff Belanger. He wanted to just kind of strip things down, take it back to print, and he started talking to me about it a few months ago. I have this crazy idea, and I was like, I'm in. What are we doing? A zine. Okay.
As good friends, you don't question,
Yeah,
you need to bring snacks and a shovel.
Yeah. So he asked me to write issue number 3, and actually, even before he even asked me to, we kind of talked about me writing an issue. And so before I knew what issue that would be, I had an idea I actually was kind of like immediately I knew what story I wanted to tell. And of course he was completely on board with it because it's in fitting with, the vision of Shadow Zine. So it's basically representing all of the like strange and unusual stories that we love, but each issue of the zine kind of takes a specific topic and really dives deep into it. It's several thousand words. And so it's more of like a lengthy discussion about one specific topic rather than, some magazines and things have like multiple contributors. This is like one author. So it's a little bit more like a small book in that way. And he's doing everything. He's doing the layout, the design. It's all, he's the publisher, he's the editor.
It really is his baby. But then for each of you, it is as well too. Like the time and effort that goes into it. Can you? You have no idea how excited I am about that chapter because that is everything that excites me. Like the paranormal parlor games, Ouija boards, channeling, that whole Victorian seance time. And I talk about it a lot to anybody that will listen. That
Oh yeah, me
kudos
too.
to
I
those
know.
kudos to those women.
Can I
Kudos
just,
to those women for finding a job,
yeah, right?
creating an income for themselves, and yeah, it was
Yeah.
a charlatan. I don't care. Good for them. That's how I.
No,
That's how I
no.
look at
I mean, that's kind of like, that's sort of, so the story that I wrote is, we called it Mark Twain's Ouija Mystery. And essentially, the story is about a woman named Emily Grant Hutchings, who in 1916 made contact through the Ouija board with the spirit of Samuel Clemens, according to her claims. So Mark Twain's ghost. This is 6 years after he had died. And so she painstakingly, with the assistance of a medium and the occasional, like, someone playing in the secretarial role. Sometimes it was her husband. Sometimes it was the head of the Cyclical Research Society. There was a kind of a cast of players who came in. They channeled two short stories and then an entire novel through the Ouija board, painstakingly. And so in the zine, I kind of do like a kind of a greater overview. So first thing we kick off with was just the significance of the spiritualist movement for women in particular, and how many
Yes,
women were,
ma'am.
yes, right, how many women were able to find agency through that. What were your options, right? Okay, we're talking about Victorian time, Edwardian time, and like the interwar era, right? So all pre-women having the right to vote.
And most of
Um,
those women were low income to like, or the
low
lower.
to medium income. Yep, you didn't have people on the upper echelons.
Yeah.
And you here were your options, right? You could work for a while as like a teacher and then marry well. You could never marry, but hopefully inherit wealth from some male relative, or maybe a female relative if you were like, dowager countess or something.
Right.
You could enter a life of servitude. You could sell your body. You could go on the stage and do something a little more vaudevillian, which wasn't well respected. Maybe you could have a career as like an opera singer or something, but like what was afforded was few and far between. And even career wise for women, they were sort of expected to just give it up once they got married. That was it.
Yeah.
Um, so spiritualism really gave, and it kind of, starting with the Fox sisters, who were later outed by a family member to have been faking it and all of that stuff. Regardless of that, they made a lot of money touring the country as three independent women, three sisters, amassing a fortune. Purportedly they drank it away, but hey,
Yeah. But I equate it to, which may get me some emails today too, maybe stepping in a big pile of poo, but we'll just keep running through it.
I'm
Like
with you.
some of the paranormal shows or the paranormal YouTube, like we understand that it's about entertainment.
Yeah,
If you get a
yeah.
little bit of extra out of it, that's fabulous. So looking at it as entertainment, but what started off as potential entertainment turned into its own religion.
Yeah, yeah, really. And I think it really, for those who aren't, super familiar with the spiritualist movement, it was most popular in the United States from about the 1840s through the 1930s, but it also took place, Australia, Ireland, the UK, Europe. There were lots of, facets of the spiritualist movement around the world. But in particular, in the United States, it really took off during the Civil War, right? Of course,
Yeah.
for the main reason being, people died. A lot of people died, and we had no
Yeah.
resolution. And so we had this
Yeah.
nation in mourning. And so spiritualism kind of had saw a peak around 1865. And then it saw another peak about 1916, 1917, which was actually just before we entered World War One. It sort
Right.
of had another rise in popularity, like another resurgence.
Well,
And
so Arthur Conan Doyle really gave it a push.
yeah,
Like
you
having
had
those
the
bigger names, right? Like those
you had
names that
those
are well
bigger names
established.
involved. Absolutely, absolutely. And then, I think there's something about the, like, the promise of war and the extremism that makes people contemplate like life after death. And to be clear, just like by my definition, not my definition alone, but spiritualism is not just the belief that you can talk to the dead, but it's also that the dead have messages, like handy messages for us, life advice for us. And that's the seeker.
Yeah.
That's what the spiritualists are seeking. They're seeking those answers.
Well, even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, like his brother died in war, which was originally like part of his connection. Like there was a reason for that.
Yeah,
Abraham
and you had
Lincoln.
Mary Todd Lincoln in the White
Yeah,
House who had
yeah,
lost a child, so she's
yeah,
conducting seances there.
yeah,
So when you have sort of figureheads in any situation, like prominent figureheads, whether they're popular authors or politicians or royalty or whatever, when you have them sort of like kind of giving the thumbs up to it, at least to experiment with it. Mary Todd Lincoln never identified as a spiritualist, but she certainly subscribed to some spiritualist beliefs and had spiritualists in the White House to work with her. So I think she was not willing to put her,
yeah,
stake down about it being one thing or another, but she was certainly open to it.
yeah. Was Jefferson the president before that? Because didn't Jeff who was before? I'm really sorry because I thought the president before that also had seance
Yes,
connection.
I believe actually there was quite a history of seances in the White House going back
Yeah,
since it was established. And there's still there's no I don't know, there might be seances in the White House, but there's still a great deal of talk of like ghosts and spirits and things in the White House. And the room that she did those, she was the one who really like she was kind of more at the forefront of it because the first lady had a lot of clout, right? Like
right.
she was very visible, and he was a very popular but a very critical president because he was like ending slavery, right? So that's kind of what his platform was, and that caused the civil unrest and the Civil War. But in any case, so you have like you have this kind of like that's the background of spiritualism, and then you have this woman named Emily Grant Hutchings. She's from Hannibal, Missouri. She has a pretty established writing career in a more conventional way, although now that she's married, she doesn't write quite as much. And she actually buys a board one day and convinces her friend Pearl Coran to come over, another St. Louis housewife of like similar kind of upper middle class. So she comes over and they play around with the Ouija board a few times. So Emily's kind of cajoling Pearl into doing this, and the third time or so, Pearl makes contact with this entity known as Patience Worth. And she then begins, not specifically through the Ouija board, but she begins to enter into like a channeled writing relationship with this Patience Worth entity, and actually has tremendous success. She's even called things like some New York literary critics said it was like one of the greatest books written, and she was just like got all of these accolades. So this was all around the same time that there's Laura Lee saying hi. This was all around the same time that Emily was starting to make contact with Twain. One of the common arguments with whether or not Emily Grant Hutchings had actually made this, was really making contact with Twain, is the fact that people point to her friend having like tremendous popularity and making all this money. Now, keep in mind, her friend's name was Pearl Coran. The name on all of the books was Patience Worth. So there's another thing. You could get published, but sometimes the only way you could get published with success was to assume a different name. I've either channeled this or you put a man's name on it. That was
Right.
literary device for years, right? George
Yeah.
Eliot. So I have heard, and I believe that they are incorrect in this. I have heard scholars say that Pearl's success made Emily feel like she needed to make a claim like that. And I have a couple counter arguments to that. One, the patriarchy. That sounds like a patriarchal excuse to just say, oh, well, she was just jealous. Like I just don't buy that. And two, Emily had a more successful career than Pearl did in terms of writing, a more conventional career. So she actually had a lot more to lose. And also, three, it was happening simultaneously, and neither one of them knew what would be a success. So Patience Worth's greatest success was called The Sorry Tale, that came out in 1917. That's the same year Emily's book came out. So there was no way of knowing, oh, if I do what my friend does. So I'm just squelching that argument in case anybody hears that come up, because in my research, that is a misguided understanding of the facts.
Right. Right.
AKA, you're wrong.
Said with love.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm wrong sometimes too.
Me too. I have a thought. I'm going to share it in a second. Contessa Martin, thank you very much for being here. Contessa is saying or asking, have you heard of Alan Kardec? He was around during that time. He is buried in France, and he connected with spirits.
I have heard of him. I don't know very much about him, but I do know that name. I have heard that name. And in the one thing I love in like doing this kind of research is all of these the connections, because you'll find out that the person that so-and-so is referring to in their introduction is this other, because so many of them overlapped at the time, and it was a spiritualist society. So people supported each other.
Yeah. And well, they still do.
Yeah. I say it like it's in the past, but the spiritualist movement exists. The spiritualist society still exists today. And in fact, it's the foundation upon which many of our modern psychic arts are based.
Yeah. I forgot to grab it off my bookshelf, and I'm not getting up to do it now. Sorry, folks. But I do have, I forget what it's called. I will find it and stick it on social media for you guys. It's a book about all of the spiritualists who channeled other authors as well too. Like this is not just a one-off. It was like happening across the board where they were pulling people through.
And actually, Emily's not the only one to have channeled Twain. There are a couple of other people who channeled Mark Twain or claimed to channel Mark Twain. And I talk about them a little bit in the zine. And there's so much to the story. So she channels this novel, and then his daughter, Clara Clemens, she and the publisher, Harper and Brothers, sue Emily's publisher, and they actually go all the way to the Supreme Court. And it's on the premise of copyright infringement, not whether or not they're talking to the dead. So it brings up all of this, these other really interesting arguments about like making claims to names and pen names. And one of the things I discovered in researching this that I hadn't realized before is that there was a man named James Hislop, and he was the head of like the revival of the Society for Cyclical Research in the United States, and during this time in the early teens. And it turned out that he was attending these sessions, writing things down, and then writing to Twain's daughter and asking her, hey, can you verify this? Can you verify this? And she's basically like, leave me alone. And so by the time that book came out, he had harassed her to the point that she had no tolerance, because other people had published using Twain's name and everyone had just ignored it. But I think he got under her skin. Now, I didn't realize that until this last, when I was working on the zine, I did like even more robust research. No, he interfered. Yeah.
Miss Laura Lee, you are extra special that you got yours all mailed out today. We were having that conversation about if people were wanting to purchase the zines, where can they look for them?
Yeah. So you can get them at shadowzine.com. That's basically the only place to get them, unless you happen to run into me or Jeff or Richard at a live event. So the Richard, authors sell their own. Richard Estep. Yeah. He did the Ghosts and Monsters. Yeah, he did the Ghosts and Monsters of Cornwall. It's beautifully written. He's a delight, and real, just very easy read. He knows the subject so well. And then the very first one was Jeff wrote the very first one, and that's the Mysteries of the Bridgewater Triangle. So. So they look so nice together. That's a little.
Oh, it's a nice trio.
So you can buy all three now at shadowzine.com. And then I'll, whatever events I'm going to, I'm doing a little book tour for Enchanted Plants, and I'll have the zine with me. It will go with me everywhere.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that whole time period when I started doing the
So,
Victorian seances with a modern twist, right? So I have some paranormal equipment out. So because people watch TV and they see it, but they don't have access to all of it
yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
unless they're doing it. So I put some paranormal equipment up for them, and then I start with a poem from 1902
Mm.
and ring a bell, and we
I
do all
really
kinds.
want to attend one of those. I'm just putting that out there right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
you,
So,
me, and Laura Lee.
yeah. Oh,
It's-
things might happen.
I
Things
hope
will
so.
definitely happen.
You know what? I just did a Dining with the Dead event at this building that was like, it's over, I think she said it was 250-year-old limestone building. There was
Oh,
like courthouse, people in the basement, people
oh,
hung in the
beautiful.
backyard. There was all kinds of stuff that
Ooh,
happened.
yeah.
And I have been doing Dining with the Dead for like 13 years. It started off in places that had haunted history attached to it as
Mm-hmm,
well too. And I
mm-hmm.
have said in every location, please, if there are spirits here, move a glass across the table, flick the lights, do something during our event.
Just something
I am open.
dramatic.
Oh, please, I am open to it. And this event last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, it happened. Coach
Oh,
and Lantern and
really?
the Pastor. And when we were interacting with the said spirits, like that was flicking the lights off and on, it was like responding intelligently to our
Wow.
questions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Enough that the kitchen staff came out going like, "What the heck are you doing out here? Like, what is going on?"
Do you
Digress.
know,
I digress.
do you know Ron Kolick from the New England Ghost Project? Do you know him?
Mm-mm.
He's a lovely guy, and he does Dining with the Dead, in and around like New England, mostly Massachusetts. And actually,
Yeah.
when I'm out there for my book tour, he just booked me one. So I'm going to present about the zine. I don't know. I don't know how he does them. I think it's a little bit different than how you conduct
Yeah.
them, but it's at a restaurant that's supposed to be haunted, and
Yeah. It's just
we'll
fun.
talk about the paranormal parlor stuff, and you get to eat and
Yeah.
drink and be merry with people and ghosts, and yeah, it sounds
Well, that
delightful.
and I think that's the other part that people maybe uh, are not aware of. It was seen as a social event. It was like dinner
Oh,
and drinks
yes.
and party.
Yes, like psychic salons, and also that it was not in conflict with like the teachings of the church, right? So, like, you could be a spiritualist and you could go to a seance on a Saturday, and then you could go to church on Sunday. Like, it was not
Yes.
considered in conflict at all. You could be
Crazy.
like channeling entities, and then, the Society for Cyclical Research was like a big deal. It was like really, yeah, very, very interesting. And I'm not the only person to write about this story, but one of the things that was really important to me is that, I mean, I've used Ouija boards with great success. And so I wanted to kind of remove, like, there's always a little skeptic in there, right? And for me, the question is not whether or not she channeled Mark Twain. The question is more about, like, I think she channeled something. And
Yeah.
also, it's about like just the greater story and how it fits into history, and how important that is, and how kind of like polarizing it was. Think like
And still
just
relevant today. Sorry, Varla. Sorry to talk
very
over you.
much. No, it's very relevant today.
Yeah.
She was an outspoken woman, and
And copyright, all of that as
oh,
well
and
too. People have
copyright.
copyright.
Yes,
In looking at artistic copyrights and
yes.
I think that
Well, it was
storyline
the
is still
yeah, it was
relevant.
the pen name that really like got them. It was the use of Twain. If she had stuck probably with just saying Clemens, she may have gotten away with it. And she doesn't claim him as a co-author, which other people had. She's the only author on there. Um, and her publisher, Mitchell Kennerly, he was hoping it would be thrown out because of that. He's like, we didn't even put his name on there, we're not claiming he authored it. But there was a copyright thing, and it was the ownership of the pen name as sort of like copyrighted intellectual property belonging to the publisher, who and the daughter being the beneficiary. But I still maintain, had this, somewhat pompous, well-meaning head of the Cyclical Research Society, he felt that he needed to prove and verify it all along. And
Right.
as a result, he kind of stabbed everyone in the foot, because he harassed her so much she couldn't ignore it
Right.
anymore. And she
Right.
literally says in an interview in the paper, I was like, something like, I was so irritated, I told him that it was ridiculous and that he could talk to my lawyer. Like, basically, she was fed up with him. Multiple letters to her, not just one, not just a, hey, would you like to speak to this? Like,
Yeah.
hey, did your dead father ever, what the circumstances in
Wow.
which did your grandfather die? Like, really personal things. She was just like, go away.
Right.
I don't blame her.
And that's too bad that they didn't know where they could have shut that down and just not allowed him, or closed how they were doing those sort of sessions, right? When I started having and again, we have people that will show up in these seances, the Victorian seances that I do, that are very well known. And it started off as a bit of a lark on my end, because I've always kind of kept that quiet, because I like evidential pieces when I'm doing I love the evidential, like the factual. I probably would have been that dude who is harassing. Like, is this truth? Like, is this picture? And again, not that I'm needing to be right for me. For me, it's about being right for the people that are coming through. If I'm doing my job and being of service, am I doing my job right for them, kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I have
True. And maybe that was his intention.
Maybe. This candle, I have a candle spinner, right? So little hanging cats. You light your little candle underneath it.
Yeah. I have one of those. Yeah.
Right? Super fun stuff. So I light that up, and I get asked spirits if they can make it spin the other way. Can they pause it and make it stop spinning? Yeses and nos and all that.
Nice.
Kind of fun stuff. And I was like watching it in my brain, in my perimenopausal ADHD-ness, and all the D's went sideways. And I'm like, this looks like the spinners from the Twister movie. Like, in the ant's yard. I'm like, oh. So there's a few of those Philip Seymour Hoffman, right? I'm like, Philip Seymour Hoffman, already. If you want to come in and hang out with us tonight, please do. Because
I feel like he's got a lot to say.
He did. He came.
Yeah.
And we actually recorded it. Like, we had his voice come through, and then it was just like one after the other, and of people that he was bringing through. And I've always shied away from having those big names.
Yeah.
Because could you prove any of that stuff, right? But it was fun and trippy. And I think the book that started it for me, when I started doing the Victorian seance, was The Witch on Lime Street. The Witch of Lime Street.
I don't know that book. Yeah.
It's kind of fun. She's a Canadian medium that married a Boston doctor. And her and Houdini had a very public fight about.
Oh, yes. He was so.
Yeah.
I think some people think he was adamant to take down spiritualists, but because he had this background as a sleight of hand magician, he was, in many ways, I feel like he was actually a defender of it, because he was
think so too.
Don't you think? Because he was really
100%.
trying to show that he just wanted anyone who was representing this to be authentic and not be using tricks, so that the speaking would really, really come through.
Still relevant today.
Still relevant today. Yeah, still relevant today. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the stories that actually Jeff introduced me to in the process of working on this, he said, "Oh, look up this book called God Bless You, Daughter." And I don't know if you've heard of this. It was channeled in 1968. And this was a woman who claimed that she made contact with, this was a woman who claimed that she made contact with Mark Twain. And it's a channeled book, but it's not a it's not a novel. It's just kind of like this whole thing where she's asking him for advice and he's writing this book for her. But the reason I thought of it is because, I mean, I talked about it in the zine, but he supposedly introduces her to, oh my gosh, like, let's see, who comes through? I have to look. All of these famous, I feel like George Eliot, maybe, all of these famous authors who were on the
Mm.
other side. Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind, came through. Um, oh, there were just like quite a few, and they kept coming through. And so Twain's ghost was like introducing her to Robert Louis Stevenson, Jack London, Edgar Rice Burroughs.
So it's possible because I'll tell you, Philip Seymour Hoffman came through when I asked, like, and I'll we ask questions that are just if we were hanging out with somebody, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
he brought in all kinds of different people. There was a group. He said there was a party group, and the other people he brought through, their voices sounded similar, and we had other equipment and things that were responding in the same way, right?
Mm,
It
mm-hmm,
was
mm-hmm.
it was weird. So I know it's possible that they could bring one after another, but it yeah, I don't talk about it so much because the potential for it to because it just sounds
Yeah.
so bizarre.
Well, what was
But you
interesting
just
is the way
started it.
this.
I hung out with like Whitney Houston, Prince,
Yeah,
Tupac, and
right, right. And this woman, she wasn't really. She wasn't like. I felt that she was just asking. She didn't really like get a lot into what those authors said, but she was just like. She'd say Twain would be like, "I want to introduce you to someone. It's Edgar Rice Burroughs or whatever," and then they would have like this little bit of a conversation.
I think
But
the
it was just a
possibility is fun. The idea that that's a possibility we need to is
the
and why
my
wouldn't it?
my favorite part of this story is the way that the afterlife is portrayed by Emily through the process of dictating this novel, because they fashion this novel into like a basically a psychic typewriter. They add parenthetical marks, they add semicolons, they make it so that it's easier to take shortcuts. And then there's this great line where Twain, he says to her, "Oh, you did a nice job with the apostrophe, but it's a little too close to the edge, and I'm in danger of falling off every time I run at it." As if he's like working really, really like he's like a hamster on a wheel to get the planchette to move, you know? And
Right.
so for me, like whether you believe that this novel was channeled or you think she just came up with like this amazing backstory or you think it was channeled by Twain, it's just worth knowing this story of like what an amazing just all of these amazing thoughts of like, oh my gosh, okay, so just
Yeah.
imagine taking your board and taking India ink and like putting in like all of these grammatical marks so that you could channel
Yeah.
something faster. Like it's just it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's just there's a
I think
story
so too.
behind the story is just as beautiful as the story itself.
Thank you
No.
for sharing. I'm just gonna roll through some of these comments. I'm so
Oh
sorry.
yeah,
For
yeah,
Thank you
please,
so
please.
much for being patient, and I'm gonna hit these up now. And before I go sideways, because I will. Um, I saw today on social media. So Adam Berry of Kindred Spirits,
Mm-hmm.
uh, he's got Ouija board T-shirts out right now. That when you are in the dark, that it glows in the dark. A
Oh, I saw
message.
those. Yeah. Okay, we
Oh,
need those.
I know, it's just so fun. I'm like, how freaking brilliant is all of that? I just
Yeah.
love it so
Yeah.
much. So,
It's great.
Laura Lee, thank you for sharing that. Jeff is coming September 8th. Jeff did say on the website that they're in the process of setting up international mailing soon. Thank goodness, all of us Canadians who are Jeff Belanger lovers and supporters of all of that good stuff, and Richard Estep and Varla Ventura and every author that he has coming up next. We are supporters of. Please don't forget our Canadian folks up here. Heather
Yeah.
Stewart Heather Stewart McLaughlin, thank you. She's sharing, I've been lucky enough to attend one of Kerrilynn's Victorian seances. So fabulous. The table tipping will blow your mind. I know. The table tipping sends everybody through the roof. They're like, holy cow. What's fun about the table tipping too, because I did it with there's a group of ghost investigators, paranormal investigators, from Six Nations called Snipe. Their team is called Snipe. And
Love
so
that
they
name.
let me, investigate with them, and we did some table tipping, and they used the infrared camera. And so you could see that none of us were pushing on the table. You could see the heat. Our hands were cold and the table in between was hot, and we weren't actually even doing it. So they caught it all on camera,
Okay.
us doing this table tipping. So again, the science.
That's a great name, Snipe. That's a great, yeah.
So brilliant. Deb was here that night too, so it was amazing.
Oh,
Thank you,
nice.
ladies, for being here. To Leslie, thank you for hanging out with us. Mish, hello. Thank you for being here. I just want to make sure that we're getting to all of them. Jeff was very funny through the lockdowns. He did his own little talk show.
Oh yeah, I was on it.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I was on it. It was hilarious. We had a great conversation. Yeah. He did like 3 talk shows. I think he started like 3 talk shows. Actually,
oh yeah,
I was on
it's
one of them.
brilliant. He kept busy. Sandra, love the table tipping we did in Thunder Bay. Thank you so much. And I do have a wonderful new table, and I'm getting the table fixed so the legs are stronger. And I'm hitting up my daughter's boyfriend to make me some risers so the table's not so low and we don't all kill our backs. So I found a vintage antique table. I think it's got some good juju vibe on it that will be fun, I think, to try for it.
Oh, exciting.
Sam's Pretty Paranormal. So Sam Henley of Sam's Pretty Paranormal, thank you for being here. Sam has an amazing YouTube channel, folks. She does paranormal. She does all of it. She kind of does dining with folks that are crossed over and telling their stories. So Johnny Cash was the latest one, I believe, Sam. She's got Bigfoot. She helps produce Bigfoot Banter with Richie B, which is a great channel to follow as well, too, because they take you in the back with them and your boots on the ground. So you're watching them as they're doing their Bigfoot investigations. So you're part of it, which is just super fun. And all kinds of fun. Kathy Lemire, I believe it's Adam Berry's website. You mean the ones that have the glow in the dark? It's through Adam's website. And who knows? I mean, it's a great concept that could be all sold out now because we've sat on it for 4 hours.
I know. I'm going to look it up for you while you're reading those.
Yeah. So fun. You know what I'm going to do? We're just going to do it quick now. It's a little early, but once we get going. Yeah, Sam was on the show as well, too. I hope to have Sam back on so you can watch that archive. It will be.
I would say your best bet if you're trying to figure out where to get them, like when you do a search, just go to his Instagram or his Facebook page, and there's links on there. That's where I saw it. I saw it on either Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, today
just look up. I think it's just like Adam Berry on there. Berry, like the berry, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
But save us too.
Yes. I think what I'm gonna do is the station ID. We're gonna do a little bit early just so we get it out of the way, and then we can just keep talking till the end of the show, and we don't have to stop again. So, if you are just joining us now, thank you so much for being here. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Kerrilynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans. If you are liking and enjoying what you're listening and seeing, please consider subscribing to the Spirit Switchboard channel. Please follow along on the uprntalkradio.com to find all of our fabulous hosts and shows, and all of our archives are there as well too. Lots of fun things are in the works, and you don't want to miss out, because it's, yes, James, I just did our station ID. Look at me, Gold Star Sticker Day. Like, it's brilliant. Thank you for the gentle reminder, though. I always appreciate when you do that for me. Our guest today is author Varla Ventura, and we were just talking about Jeff Belanger's Shadow Zine, which you can find on shadowzine.com, and you were the contributor for this last installment.
Issue number 3. Yeah.
Issue number 3. It's all about Ouija boards, folks. Mark Twain's Ouija Mystery is what it's called. So
yeah,
you can check that out there. All right. I want to just share something on the screen first before we get into. Let's see if I can do this, because every week I feel like I'm having to remember. It's like 51st dates. I'm like, how do I share? Let's see if I can remember how to do this. Okay, wait. There we go. Look at me go. Oh.
I'm just going to point out that Kerrilynn and I have the exact same color wall. We did not plan that. We are not in the same room. It looks like we are, though. It's remarkable.
But we are not even in the same country.
Not even in the same country. Oh dear, here we go.
This photo shoot is everything. All of them, every single picture. I'm going to put another one up too, because I know that I used it in the reel. So there are times, right? So it's an interesting thing when we have to do all of that kind of dressing up and publicity stuff, and so when all of them, I just think you look like a goddess. You look like a freaking empowered queen. The first one I saw, I literally said that. I was like, yes, queen. It is so brilliant. All of them. I'm going to bring up the next one as well too. And I hope that when you see them, that you feel as confident as you appear in all of them.
I love the way they turned out. The woman, it's M&D Media who did them, and they just were amazing. Just really, really took great care of me. And, but yeah, I don't know. I feel very empowered by this book in particular. And so I just tried to like embody that. And honestly, it had been years since I had had anything other than like a selfie taken. Really. Right. And I was like, I kind of need a more professional author photo. Well, yes, this was my favorite one.
Mine too. If I can say that, I just like, I'll take what you're serving.
That's if you like a sip. Can I offer you some?
Yes. And I think the scary part maybe, and you tell me your thoughts in that, this was your baby, right? This was years, and it's personal and professional. This book, all of it is personal and professional. It's a baby that has been birthed over years, like not just, this wasn't there's so much to it. And then could they capture all of that, capture you, capture the story, capture the essence of all of it? And I feel they did it. How do you, I don't know, what are your thoughts to all of that?
In terms of the book or the photos or both?
All of it. All of it.
Well, I'll tell you something kind of interesting, which you may or may not know, but just before this photo shoot, which I had prearranged, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, like the week prior to this photo shoot. So I was still kind of processing that. And And so when I went into the photo shoot, I did tell the photographer, Adina, like immediately, I was like, I need to tell you something. And I want you to know I'm okay with, this being a tit forward photo shoot if need be. but really,
Right.
but really I was
Right.
just like, I just was so happy to have this, very, very empowering thing happening with my body at a moment when I was
Yes.
really feeling betrayed by my body. So I
Right.
think that is part of what we tapped into with it, that I was feeling very defiant of any kind of restrictions, and also like they made me that, like they made this drink for me. This is a Hoya, the woman whose house the photo shoot took place at is like this mad scientist Hoya, which is a type of plant, like a waxy leaf plant. She's a mad scientist Hoya collector. So she made me like these like cocktails and concoctions that had like things trailing down around my head, and it was like really a lot of they saw the book and they understood it, and they kind of understood the vibe. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so there
And
was definitely like I actually really couldn't believe what the book looked like when I got it. I was
it's
stunned.
it's all beautiful. Thank you for feeling um, safe to be vulnerable and sharing that part of which is very personal. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm glad that you, or appreciate that you felt safe to share that with everyone. And everyone is saying hugs, healing, positive vibes,
Oh
and
yeah,
much
thank
love
you.
to you. Um, and my friend she's in Tupelo, Mississippi. She's about 4'11". She's a smoker. She teaches yoga, and she's got that.
I already
She's
love her.
Yep, me too. And she's got that southern drawl with the raspy
Mm.
smokiness because she's I don't know how I'm mid 60 ish. Well, maybe a little older, but she had this experience, and she said, I just don't agree to it. She said, I understand what the lesson is, and she said, and so every day I would talk to it and tell it to kiss off with love and thank you very much. But she would say flock off, but not
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
flock.
yeah, yeah.
With love, thank you very much, and we're just moving on with life, and
Well, and
this
and
photo shoot looks like moving on with life. So
yeah,
yes, we're going to deal
okay,
with this
and
this
I
crap,
am
right?
happy to say that I've had, so far, I've had one surgery, and the prognosis is really good. It's like
Amazing.
very localized, not spread. So I still have treatment to come, but I have a second surgery, and there's a future with radiation and stuff like that. But overall, like thus far, the outcome has been, as positive as it can be given the negative circumstances. And I don't mind talking about it. I don't love, like, hey everybody, I have cancer. But I do think it's important to talk about scary things. And you've been putting off that mammogram. Don't do it. Go get it right now. Make your appointment. Because it makes a
And
big
that's
difference.
the self-care factor in it, right? In being proactive.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Um,
anyway, it's just interesting because I think like
so
there's
I
there's
gave
something that came across in those photos that I
oh,
was a little bit like, oh, I was a little taken aback by the me in those photos. So
they're just I hope forever. Like I honestly think it needs to be a huge billboard that people can drive by and see as they drive around. They're, they're brilliant. Brilliant. And so this is the cover of the book. I do have my copy here, but I just wanted to show folks, the cover of it. And the photo doesn't do it justice for sure. Um,
yeah, because in real life it has
oh, it's
gilded
gilded.
edges,
Yes.
shiny, shiny,
Because we all like shiny.
and then it has full color illustrations.
So I did,
Also the same
yes,
green as our walls and my nails.
yes. I I have a page that I'll pull up um, for folks. that they can see as well too inside.
Yeah, and
Oh yes, Mish,
it's
I'm
available in
glad that you
Canada.
know. Mish was just asking where my bookmark landed, and we'll get there in a
Oh
second. I
yeah.
just want to show the inside of the book, and then we can talk about all of those fun things, folks. Um, would love to get your book, and I know my daughter-in-law would love it too. Yeah, Sandra, I'm going to put all of that stuff up in 1 second. We're just going to show this picture, and that's how I was too. I had a list of people that I knew would be getting this for a birthday or holiday.
Great, great Mother's Day gift. Oh yeah, there's
Yeah,
Datura.
like look, every page. It is stunning.
You know what
Every
I love?
page.
I love the way the designer made the leaves overlap from one illustration
Yes.
onto the next, as if the plants are kind of coming off the page. That was a
Yeah.
lovely touch. Yeah.
Yeah. It gives it movement to it, right? Like they feel
Mhm.
alive. Okay.
Yeah. There was really a lot of care and magic in the design as well, which I
Mhm.
appreciate so much. Yeah.
I'm just going to close this up and then we are good. Heather, I knew as soon as I got my copy, I sent it to my friend Heather, who owns this magical place called Come to the Forest, and
Ooh.
right, beautiful things. I love the magical velvet ribbon too, and we're going to talk
Whoa.
about that in a second. So Heather is saying hers arrives. She ordered it right away. She said hers arrives next week.
Yay. Yay.
It is beautiful and magical for sure. I agree. Would love to get your book. I have along the bottom, if you guys, for those people who are watching, varlaventura.net, you can head there, and you can get it through the website or all the links anywhere that
Mhm.
you buy books. It is available.
Yes. And it is in stock in Canada right now. Should be. So it should be well distributed to all of the small bookstores, Amazon can, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. And of course in the United States. And I think it becomes available in the UK in May. I think it's a month behind the
Oh,
regular schedule. But I know you
okay.
can pre-order it because there's links for that. So
Um, where should we start?
okay, well let's start with the bibliomancy that exists in all of these books.
Right. And I know that I shared with you, um, because I love that. I and encourage people to do that kind of divination
Mm-hmm.
as well too all the time. And I didn't realize about. I know that I shared. We're talking about Jeff Belanger quite a bit. So when I had purchased his book about Krampus.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And had him on the show, and I was so excited because everything about Krampus, I'm all there for. And he said, "Did you recognize the ribbon?" And it didn't even dawn on me that it was Krampus' tongue. So
Yeah, it's forked.
yeah, that it's forked like his tongue, and so because I felt like I had made this faux pas, I am extra sensitive and aware to all of that. So
My ribbon is not forked.
it is not forked, but
No, it is not forked.
I was consciously aware of where it was landed.
Yes.
So
So what happened is I got my book, the first advance copy, like back in January. Is like the one that came from far away. And when I got it, I noticed the ribbon was on Datura. And I was like, oh, how cool. Like the ribbon falls on Datura. It's one of my favorite plants. This is great. And then when I got my box of author advances, a couple months later, I started to like kind of just look, and I noticed that the first one I cracked open, the ribbon was somewhere else. It was on like wolf's bane. And then the next one was on foxglove. And so then, and I gave a couple to my family members, and I started realizing everybody's, I mean, there's probably some overlap, right? But everybody's ribbon falls somewhere different for them. And so I felt like I'm a big like bibliomancy fan. And I just felt like this book was also had its own magic and was saying like, hey, this is the plant you need to know about. This is the plant you need to like pay special attention to when you get to that part, or bring it into your life somehow. It just felt like the book was giving messages, and I thought that was, the book itself is enchanted.
I
I
think it
couldn't believe
is.
it. Henbane.
Laura Lee is sharing hers was on henbane.
Mhm.
Mish, did you get a copy? Do you have a copy? Where was your ribbon? Anybody else in the chat that has a copy and feels comfortable in sharing where their ribbon landed? Please
I know
share.
sometimes people don't realize that and they move it, and oh, that's, hi Mark. Yeah.
Oh, not
Um,
yet.
oh,
That's
she
okay.
doesn't have
So
one yet.
mine,
Okay.
yeah. So mine
Okay, so
landed
where's yours?
on Deadly Nightshade, Belladonna.
Woo! Yay, yay. That's great.
I thought it was
You are
appropriate,
a
actually.
belladonna and a deadly nightshade all in one. So it's
And
very
that's
appropriate for you.
right. Beauty and necromancy.
Yes, the perfect
Yeah,
combo. Oh,
it
yeah.
was just so fun. I don't. Oh, do you know what? So Mark Eddy, it's Varla, and I'm wearing in onesie.
I don't know what that part means, but I know Mark.
I don't. I don't either. But I'm in my PJs. We can all be hanging out in PJs today.
I'm in my
um,
casual attire.
I think that's brilliant. So yeah, mine landed in Daily Nightshade, Kathy Lemire. I love that the ribbons land on different plants for each person. When I buy one, I'll let you know where it lands. Perfect, Kathy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
let me know if you like take a picture of it. You can tag me on social media if you want, or just like, yeah, just let me know. I just love learning.
Yeah,
Datura, nice.
fabulous, Maureen. Thank you. Oh, Mish, that's fine. I think pajamas, we need to just make it, a thing. Comfy is in. Whatever
Oh,
comfy is for you is how
yeah.
we're going to roll with that. So I like everything about this book, and like it doesn't even describe it. So it really is a journey. Like we're moving through one section to the next section to the next section. So was that could you talk about that? How you've got the
Thank
sections?
you. Thank you for getting that.
Yes,
Thank you for
beautiful.
getting that. That is exactly how I structured it. I structured it as if you were going, I organized it by types of gardens that you might come upon in fairy tales. And I tried to structure it as
Mhm.
if you were starting out in the Queen's Garden and then heading round the bend into the cottage garden and then continuing on into the witch's garden and then out into the meadow and then the forest and then to the sea. And so I kind of imagined that you were kind of going on this journey that also was to places very typically appearing in fairy tales as well. And that
Right.
the kind of the crux of the book is that it's exploring fairy tales and folklore through a botanical lens. So all of the stories in there would be completely different stories were it not for the plants that are at the center of those stories. So
Right.
every plant has a story, every plant has lore. I had to like really kind of, I made this criteria that a lot of them got, pushed away because there just really wasn't a story that couldn't exist without these particular plants.
Can I tell you which one
So,
surprised me?
what's that?
Can I tell you which one surprised me?
Yes,
Cabbage.
cabbage. Cabbage surprised me to the surprising number of stories about cabbage. Enchanted cabbage. It did not originally have its own section. It was, in fact, because of corn and cabbage and turnips, I ended up creating a new chapter. Originally, there was no cottage garden. It was like they were kind of in
Wow.
other places. And I was like, actually, I think they were all originally in the Queen's Garden. I was like, well, yeah, the Queen's Garden, but it's really the kitchen garden of the Queen's Garden, not the same place where the Queen strolls and, sniffs a
Right.
rose. We're talking about like a place where we're growing garlic and potatoes and, um, so I was like, yeah, that's really like the cottage garden. And because like cabbage was supposed to just be I thought I would get away with like a leafy green section.
Right.
And there was a little bit out there about endive, but cabbage it commanded its own section, and I was like, okay, cabbage it is. There's just so many stories about eating enchanted cabbages, cabbages that grow, 10 feet tall, cabbages that lead up into the heavens, like just all kinds of. I was equally surprised by the prevalence of cabbage in fairy tales.
Yeah, it surprised me. But again, it's a beautiful photo.
Yeah,
Beautiful
cabbages never look so
cabbage.
pretty, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, the other thing that I forgot that I was going to pull out some in here, because there's everything about it is magical. Even the small photos that they have to go
Mm.
with the folklore story that you share, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
photos that are part of the folklore, not necessarily the plant, the image of the plant.
Right.
And there's one with the pig with the crown.
Oh, I knew you were going to say the pig with the crown. I love that illustration.
So I have this. So my friend's sister gave her this pig. It's just like ornament pig, but this big, and I had it outside for a while and was not loving it very much. So it needed some attention. So I brought it
Uh-huh.
in, painted it up, zhuzhed it up, and then I made it a crown and put pearls on it. And it looks exactly like
It looks just like that one.
it looks like the pig in this in the folklore
Okay, you're
story.
going to have to send me a picture of that because that's
I will.
amazing.
I will. I was going to put it up for everybody to see it, and yeah, I didn't. I didn't get that organized today.
Busy
But
day. Busy day.
it,
It's a
it
Friday.
just yes.
Isn't it? It's Friday, right? I think it's still
I
Friday.
had a hard time remembering that this morning. Honestly, I couldn't
Yeah,
remember
it's been a strange week
what
for
day
me.
it
Like
was.
my scheduling's off a little bit, but
And you've had a lot of because you chatted with Jeff, was it last week as well too, and Laura, you were on Laura Lee's show at the
Mhm.
beginning of the week. You've had a very busy. Do you get to rest this
Yeah,
weekend?
yeah. I've got a couple of yes, I will rest this weekend, and then I've got another interview next Monday. I've got a few, which was planned because the book just came out, so that's kind of how it goes. And then I don't have any beginning in May. I actually have a couple of in person. I have a couple. I have a bookstore event and then a book launch, and then I'll be in sort of like the western part of north and western part of Massachusetts doing a book tour where I'll be speaking at different libraries. I'm doing a Dining with the Dead event with Ron and talking about enchanted plants and, driving around from little town to little town and just kind of loving life. So,
So little towns appreciate all of that though, because little towns don't always get, we appreciate when entertainment and people come to town, like
well, there's no one like the librarians. They're just amazing.
right?
One librarian introduced me to another librarian, and then before I knew it, I had 10. I couldn't even book all. I didn't have time to even book all of the libraries. So I was
Oh,
really, yeah, it was really. It's just, and my publisher is based in Massachusetts, so that makes things a little easier for me because I can basically just like get books from them. And my books are very heavy. They are a little over or just under 2 pounds a piece. So a box of my books is 40 pounds. You don't want to pay shipping on 40 pounds
no,
if you don't have to. So I'll be able to
no.
just kind of cruise in, pick them up, and then go about my
Oh,
merry
that's
way.
brilliant.
Yeah.
That's so brilliant. Even the library here let me do like paranormal for teens,
Oh,
introducing
fun.
them. Yeah. So
Oh, I run a
and the
teen
Girl Guide
writing
group.
group, and that is one of the great. It's one of my favorite age. I just love that age group. It's
Yeah,
just so fun to work with. They're so
agreed.
open, but so like mature enough to be like really into it. And yeah, I
And
love that.
question things. Like they'll dig
Mhm.
deep and ask all of those questions. Laura Lee's just
Yeah.
reminding, you were on Coast to Coast this week as well
Oh
too.
yeah, I was also like, thank you. Oh yeah, coast to coast.
No
Yeah,
problem.
like 2 in the morning. It was fine. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Contessa Cabbage Patch Dolls. Yep.
Yep.
Cabbage
Cabbage
Patch
Patch
Dolls.
Dolls.
For sure. Okay, so bibliomancy, we could probably, I think we should encourage, I'm going to try it out, and then maybe that's what I'm going to encourage my intuitive development folks to maybe do the same thing. Like if you kind of hold it and move your pages around and stop, maybe that's the plant that you're needing to work with each
Should we
week,
do
right?
it at the same time right now?
Want to do it now? Okay.
Yeah, let's each do it at the same time. Okay, you say when to start.
Okay, start now. Ooh, something just touched my back.
Okay.
This was not an invitation for dead folks to come in. Okay.
Well, I stopped when I got a little chill. So, what did you get?
Ivy.
I got tulip.
Oh. Okay,
I
so
love it.
tell me what tulip is about. So, folks, so we were
It's
flipping through
actually
the
one of my favorite. It's actually probably my favorite flower, and I know it's hard to pick. It's very, very difficult to choose a favorite, but tulips are my favorite flowers. So I think the story that's at the center of this is a little bit of a Thumbelina type story. But tulips have this amazing history because what was really just like a humble bulb actually became part of this whole trade war and this tulip fever. And so, in many ways, tulips represent this sort of like almost unreachable exquisiteness, even though they're much more common. They were at one point, worth more than their weight in gold. And the other thing I love about tulips is that they last quite a while in the ground, and they're terribly fleeting as a cut flower.
But they
So
look beautiful when they
they look,
droop.
they look so beautiful. So it's just this
Yeah.
reminder of like, I don't know, just embrace that beauty is temporary, right? So,
Yeah.
that
And
moment is
you have black
temporary and it's
tulips.
okay. It's okay for it to be temporary, right? Oh yeah, black
Yeah.
tulips. Those are my favorite. Queen of the night. I have those growing in my garden. Can't wait for those to come up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Beautiful. What is the magical properties of tulip?
The magical properties of tulip. Well, let's see. What have I written here? Tulips are
Yeah, so I'm
considered
going to read it.
beloved. Oh, well, of course, fairies. Tulips are considered beloved flowers to fairies and elves who protect the flowers and those who grow them. These flowers are associated with love and renewal. So I think magically you can
Yeah.
use tulips. I think tulips make a really, really nice addition to an altar, especially when you're working through overcoming something or a feeling of renewal. They come up in the spring. So if you're kind of in that like I'm trying to overcome something, I want to like freshen things or have a new
Yeah.
perspective. I think they work really, really well for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All righty. Ivy. I don't know the lore, but I'll read the magical properties really quickly.
Okay.
And then, do you remember the lore
I
for
remember
ivy?
some of the lore. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. So, magical properties of ivy, which I love ivy. Everybody knows my ivies. I've got a vintage bicycle that is, because we've got, kind of the dodgy end where I live. So it's like locked to the porch, multiple locks to the porch, but I've got this basket up front that I fill with flowers and we light it up so it looks all pretty at nighttime, and there's always beautiful trailing ivy in it every summer. So everlasting love, immortality, friendship, luck, prosperity. Oh, it's difficult to kill. That's good to know. I'll live forever. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
okay, lore to ivy.
Yeah, so some of the lore to ivy, like ivy is one of those, it is a plant of immortality. Frequently, it frequently depicted in like wreaths and Greek myths, or you'll see ivy as one of the more common plants planted on headstones. So you'll see like a relief of ivy on there. And it's
Oh,
sort of to represent immortality. It represents immortality because it remains green in most places, not everywhere, not where I live anymore, but it remains green even in the coldest of winter. And so it becomes this kind of symbol of everlasting, much like an evergreen, which is also why it's associated with the Yule holiday or the winter holidays. So one of the stories I actually included in this that is completely original is the story about It's actually about my mom, and it's this like thing she used to tell me all the time. And in many ways, that's like the foundation of my fairy tales. But when she was a young girl in the 1940s, in the hills of San Francisco, the San Bruno Mountains kind of surround San Francisco. And she lived in San Francisco as a young child, and it was free range then, right? You just go do whatever you want. And she used to wander up the hill a few blocks, and there was an old mansion there that belonged to some famous family. But the mansion itself was just covered in ivy and kind of overgrown. And there was a woman who lived there. And my mom used to sneak through the fence, and she thinks probably the woman knew she was there, but never did anything about it. But my mom used to sneak through the fence, and she would go and she would lay in this ivy covered swimming pool. So this pool was just overgrown, and she would just lay in this swimming pool and just kind of like lay there and like just imagine and think. And so I told her, Mom, I want to include you, like, in the personal part of the story, I want to include your memories of that place, of that that very fairy tale like setting. So, but yeah, there's so many wonderful things with the lore. There's all kinds of stuff about like determining who your true love is through like leaves of ivy, decorating with it to bring in like health and prosperity.
I want to know more about that.
The love part? Yeah, right.
Determining who your true love is with ivy.
Okay, so there's two ways. There's two ways to do it. All right, so this. Okay. Okay, so here's one way to do it. All right. This is actually, with permission, spoke with someone named Neil McAteer, and he wrote this amazing book called Wild Plants, Myths, Legends, and Folklore. Ireland's Wild Plants. It's a fabulous book. And I tell you what, it's a book. I was in Ireland traveling, and you try not to get too many books when you're traveling, but I just like had this feeling. I was like, I'm going to have a hard time finding this book. I'm buying this book. And I didn't buy his one on trees, and I totally regretted it, even though it would have taken up a quarter of my suitcase. So anyway, so this is the thing. So you take 9 ivy leaves. Okay. There's a chant. 9 ivy leaves I place under my head to dream of the living and not of the dead. To dream of the man. Now you could put in woman or man, substitute whatever you want there.
Person.
To dream of the man person. The dream of the man I am going to wed, and to see him tonight at the foot of my bed. So you need 9 ivy leaves.
Yeah,
and I think you would put this. You would put this under your pillow. And you would chant this. So
I would definitely have to clarify living, not dead, because dead folks want to show up.
It does say that. 9 ivy leaves I place under my head to dream of the living and not of the dead. To dream of the man I am going to wed, and to see him tonight at the foot of my bed. So that's one of the ways. I can't remember what the other one is. I'm sure it's in here. Just like ivy just has it's a lot of association with fairy lore, being able to see fairies, adding a level of protection. If you're trying to do certain kinds of magic, it will protect
That's how
you.
I associate it
with protection.
Yeah.
It's great.
Which is why it's on the up against my porch, right? Like
exactly.
And then the spiders are there, so we just thank the spiders for doing the same.
Spiders, welcome.
Yes,
and especially good to scare off people who are afraid of spiders.
Yes. Okay, Datura. Can we talk about Datura? Because hopefully my friend Carol is. Well, she doesn't always watch. She lives in Prince Edward Island now, so.
I'm going to try and go there this summer. Actually, Prince Edward Island. That's on my travel list.
You will love it. So that's where she moved to, and I didn't. So she is our. She helps me with everything.
She's my resident everything.
she really is. She takes very good care of me. I was having such a horrible day. So covered bridge. I don't know. Are you a chips person? Are you a snacky person? Chips at all? That's okay if you're not.
I mean,
Prince Edward Island's known for potatoes, right? So they
oh,
have
okay, okay.
these chips called covered bridge chips because they
I mean,
have
I
all
like
these
chips.
bridge. So they call them storm chips. They've got a which is like a mash in one bag of ketchup, dill, all dressed in something else, and it's all in one bag, all
Okay,
together,
okay.
right? Storm chips. So when the weather's bad and stormy, you get your storm chips, and you're good. You don't need
Gotcha.
anything.
Okay, okay. I'll be
Storm
trying those when I'm there.
Right, Sandy? So Sandy Cordic is in Prince Edward Island as well too. PEI. Sorry.
DEI. Yeah, yeah.
Um, anyway, so I was having a really bad day, and she said, "You have a parcel coming." And I went, "Okay, thank you. Gives me something to look forward to. I'm in Ontario." And a few days later, this huge, massive box shows up at my door. I open it. I'm expecting it to be heavy. Nope, light as a balloon. And I open it. It was
Hmm.
20 bags of covered bridge chips in every flavor,
Oh,
multiple bags,
oh,
everything.
that's
So
so nice.
right. So she just takes care of me. So with magical plants, plants that dogs should not be around, or pets
Mm,
of any kind, ones that you should maybe wear gloves and make sure you wash your hands and are careful about all of those fun things as well too. She's taught me about those, and so I pulled it out to show you and folks. This is my like Datura salve, and I have been sparingly using this because she moved away, and I didn't want her to have to keep sending me stuff because Canada Post and all of that
mhm, mhm.
stuff. But yeah, so I think we've got moringa leaf. There's all kinds of stuff she has
Mm,
sent my way as well too. And I used this on my uh, grandma before she passed away when her arthritis was really bad on her knees. Um,
mm.
we would tell her what we wanted it to do for her,
Oh,
and it did.
nice. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, well, so that's working. All of those plants, the plants that are in the witch's garden, right? Those are the poison plants, but it's the poison plants that have the strongest medicine.
Yes.
And the secret is to know how to handle it so that you don't go too far, and so that
Yeah.
you are using them from a place of reverence and not recklessness, right?
Yeah.
And Datura, that plant's been abused. Let's be honest. It does have hallucinogenic properties. It is used as a transformative um, drug among, for example, shamans in the Chumash Society in Southern California. And so, because of this, hippie hippie teens started chewing on Datura. So it's definitely not been as held in as much reverence and respect as it could or should be. But is that a magical plant? It has so interestingly, when I was doing like this whole the poison plant, the witch's garden, a lot of the plants, Datura, deadly nightshade, aconite or wolfsbane, henbane, a lot of them have the same kind of like alkaloids in them. And these are alkaloids like scopolamine, which basically like knocks you out. So even though they are completely different plant species, they have like a lot of these same kind of narcotic or strong properties, many of which have been used in medicine for years, right? In fact, to the first anesthesia came from the Greeks, mixing up some henbane and a little bit of hemlock, and maybe a little something else. But datura is indigenous to like central, north, and South America. There are many different varieties. One of the more common plants, and this is always requires a little bit of clarifying, but there's a plant called angel's trumpet, also sometimes called devil's trumpet, its botanical name is brugmansia. It's also commonly called datura. It looks very much like a datura flower. However, and it actually used to be called datura, but in like the 1970s, they reclassified it as a different plant. The main difference being that brugmansia flowers hang down like a bell and datura flowers grow up. Datura is also Jimson weed, or sometimes called
Oh,
Jamestown
yeah.
weed.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's many different varieties, all of which have these really strong chemical properties. Scopolamine, and it is an anesthesia. Yeah, yeah. Laura Lee says, I've heard of scopolamine, and it is an anesthesia. She's a nurse, but I've heard it referred to as devil's breath too. Yeah, Datura is also called, oh my gosh, I think I made a list of like all the devilish names. It is called Jimson weed, Jamestown weed, thorn apple, devil's trumpet, moi moi, which is the Chumash word for it, thorny apple, or of Peru, devil's weed, yerba del diablo, mad apple, devil's snare, zombie cucumber, moonflower, and not to be confused with Ipomoea, the moonflower, and I'm sure devil's breath could be tossed in there as well.
So,
So, oh, go ahead.
sorry. No, that's okay. There's another question that's going to take us sideways, but I want you to be able to finish about Datura
Oh,
before.
just that it's yeah, I mean, any time you have a plant that the common name is associated with the devil,
Yeah.
that is an indication that it is a very magical plant, because the only way to keep people away from it is by calling it something negative. And just going to say, you do have to be
Weird.
mindful of common names with plants, because um, common names are common names. So you could call something you call it devil's weed, and it could be actually like just stinging nettle that gets on your skin, is a very different experience than like chewing on datura seeds or something. Yeah.
Right. So cautious and education. Educate yourself and
Yeah. Well, these
because
properties that it
caution.
has that yeah, properties that it has that can knock you out are also the properties that it has that can heal you, right?
Yeah,
Like that's the medicine of it. That's the medicine of it. You just can't use too much.
exactly. So
Right?
I should have. I have some mugwort salve in my
Mm.
um, fridge as well too. I didn't know if we were going to get to that. It's not mugwort's not actually in the book though, is it? Unless that's a
No, I
common name.
don't I don't have mugwort in the book, but I use mugwort frequently. I actually just was did something this afternoon with some Irish mugwort that I bought when I was in Kilkenny, the Witches City. I use that. Mugwort is actually one of the first herbs I learned about, because as a young child, my mom had us make mugwort dream pillows to put under our pillows so that we would have good dreams. So I use it for that reason. And also, anytime I'm trying to actualize a dream into fruition, I use it as well. And you can make tea out of it. You can also just like burn it. It's very light and fluffy, so it burns well as a herbal incense, as long as you don't set your smoke alarm off, but you can do it on a little charcoal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grant Evans was asking the questions, or he was saying, "Good evening to you both. What are your thoughts on mugwort? I've been told it's very popular with New Age practices, and very much so in many different ways." And
Hmm.
Grant is co-director of the Ontario Paranormal Society. So
Oh, hello.
Grant
A
been on
delight.
the show, yeah, a number of times. We always he is a fan favorite when he comes on. Um, oh, Heidi. Lots of mugwort folks in the chat tonight. Love my
Hmm.
mugwort,
Hmm.
motherwort plants along with Majarium? Ma-
Probably marjoram is
Marjoram.
probably, yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, mugwort. Look how popular it is. Yeah.
Yes. Laura Lee, Varla is one of the most educated persons I know regarding plant medicine properties and knows so much. And we benefit from that. We appreciate all that you know and that you share of yourself and your
Well,
knowledge.
well, thank you. And but I'll just add to that that my knowledge is all it's from books and it's from plants. And I've taken a few classes. I did some botany and horticultural studies, but I've just worked with plants, both like professionally, worked as a as a landscaper, but also just since I was a kid, just absorbing books like this, any kind of books in plant lore. So I appreciate that, but I think anyone can become uh, educated on the plant world if they so choose.
Well, you have to have the desire to as well
Of
too,
course,
right?
right. Like some people are really good at identifying birds. I'm not good at that. I
No.
love birds, but I'm not good at identifying them. But I can identify a lot of plants.
How did you? It was the folklore, right? That the folklore stories that helped you discern which ones you were going to choose, which plants you were choosing to put in. Like the list must have been.
Yeah.
Did you have favorites right off the top that you knew you
Yeah,
wanted
I
in?
I had such a long list and so many that I ended up having to cut. And so the idea came to me. It was probably like COVID times, and I was reading through my Grimm's fairy tales, as one does when you're homebound.
Yep. Yes.
And I just kind of started taking note of, putting tiny little post-its in different stories where I saw plants really specifically being like kind of centered in the or mentioned or centered in the story. And it made me start thinking like, what if, and like in some cases you couldn't always identify the plant. So there was a little bit of a challenge there. It's like, what plant are they talking about here? For example, in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, when he comes, it's the creature, the monster is sort of like hiding out in this behind this cabin, in this like shed behind this cabin, and there's this little family, and it's a little girl and a little boy and the grandfather, and she describes this flower that blooms before the vernal equinox. And so I'm like, oh, that must have been a snowdrop because it's alpine. This is where it was set, just kind of, I'm speculating about that. And so I just started noting. I was like, okay, this one talks about roses. You knew rose was going to be in there no matter what. Roses are
Right.
like, they're just steeped in story and fairy tales. And I knew apple would be in there. Those were two I was sure were going to make it in there. And
Hazel.
foxglove. Mm-hmm. Hazel. Now hazel. I have a
That's
strong
my grandmother's
association.
middle name.
Oh, that's my
I
dog.
saw it.
I named my puppy Hazel.
Yeah, so
I love
I
that
was like,
name.
"Oh,
Oh.
Hazel," but I
Well,
didn't
and
read it yet.
oh, well, I won't spoil it for you, but I will tell you that there's a story in there, and the plant is at the center of this story. The plant is hazel, and it's a story that, well, I'll tell you what the story is. It's Cinderella,
Ah,
and it's not
that's
the pumpkin
interesting.
at all. There's no pumpkin in this story. There's a magical hazel tree that grows on her
Yeah.
mother's grave, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, super gruesome story. Yeah, all kinds of nice bloody details in there, in those German
I'm there
style.
for it.
Yeah. So, but I think so. What happened to me is I started thinking, like, I wonder if I could do a book that's just an exploration of fairy tales through this botanical lens. And then I started just like looking and finding things. And then so then what I did is I actually had like a document for every plant that I thought I was going to include. And then I did an outline of how I thought it would be. And then I pitched it to the publisher, and then we redid the outline. And they gave me a lot of like trust. It was just like, okay, we kind of know what you're going to do with this. I had a formula for each chapter, so I was able to submit like what the sample chapters would be like. And I was like, but I cannot guarantee you that this is the final list, because
Right.
sometimes the plants have minds of their own, and one thing leads to another. And there were a couple late editions, there were a couple of cuts that I put like one little thing about yarrow in there. I really love yarrow. That's one of my favorite herbs.
Too.
But there really wasn't, there's a lot of lore about yarrow, and it being like part of Achilles using it to tend wounds in battle, and actually its name is based on his name. So there's like lore around it, like all the plants, but there wasn't like a full story that I could tell or retell. So that I got, so then that was my criteria kind of became like, okay, how am I going to, like filter this down to like the final plants.
Laura Lee is just sharing, Varla, I didn't know about the painting of roses and the secret in painting them and why until you shared those historical facts.
Right. So I was on the Culloden battlefield. All good stories start like this, right? I was on the Culloden
Yes.
battlefield outside of Inverness, Scotland. And I was walking around, and a woman was kind of giving us this, talking about this croft, like this little cottage that was on the property. And for those who don't know, the Culloden battlefield was basically like the end of the Jacobite uprising. Actually, I think more than 1,000 men were slaughtered in a matter of, couple of hours. It was really, really brutal. And so after that, the redcoats, who were represented the English government, were going through the Highlands, and they were flushing out any of the Jacobites. The symbol of the Jacobites is a white rose. And it was actually planted as a secret symbol. So if you had a white rose growing over your fence or whatever, it was like, hey, you can take respite here. We're supporters. So we're standing on the Culloden battlefield, and this woman's talking about this croft and how, like, what the redcoats would ask, are you a gardener? And then the answer would inevitably be yes. And so I raised my hand and said, well, why would they ask that? And she said, well, they would ask it because everyone was a gardener. So the answer would be yes. So you'd be guilty no matter what. And I started thinking about it, and she was like, and then she talks about the white rose growing, that was sometimes a symbol. And I looked at my friend, and I thought, oh, painting the roses red. Now, Lewis Carroll wrote that in the 1800s. The Jacobite uprising was 150 years before that. But during the time when the Culloden battlefield, like the clan stones were being placed there and the memorial cairn, that was the Victorian era. And Carroll was a known critic of the British government. And so some people said that it was Henry VIII, and then there was something about the Queen. And so there's a lot of things that happen in Alice in Wonderland that are subtle. But I stand by this conclusion that I came to on that battlefield. And I tried to back it up with some pretty good evidence, but honestly, it's just my hunch. But that the idea of painting the roses red was a means to like save their heads, because otherwise they would be seen as traitors to the crown, i.e. part of the Jacobite uprising. So that's kind of cool when stuff like that happens to you in a magical place, and you just have this epiphany, and then they're like, I'm putting that in my book. But
it's fascinating, and it adds to it, right? Yeah, it's fascinating. It just adds to it. Tammy Johnnings is just sharing really quickly. I used to play with plants as a child. As I've been learning about them as an adult, a lot of them actually proven safe to use, yarrow, purslane, curly dock, etc.
Yes. I spent a lot of time playing with plants as a child, and also like learning. I remember, my mom would have us gather certain things. The neighbor lady was pregnant. We went and gathered red raspberry leaf. We were taught so my mom didn't teach us not to, my mom didn't teach us that Atropa belladonna was a bad thing. She taught us that it was a really strong magical plant, and we were never to touch it. And so we didn't touch it. We left it alone in the garden. Yeah. She wasn't going to pull it up. And to this day, like sometimes it pops up, there's like a variant that pops up as a weed, and it's like, I gotta just leave that. I'll leave that.
Okay, I know that I had talked to you in the email about it, and if we don't have because I need to be mindful of our time, because we are winding down towards the end. Yep. If we don't have a lot of time to connect, maybe I can have you back and we can dive into it a little bit more as well too. But floramancy, I know that that's not necessarily part of this, but it is plant, and I don't know if that's something
Oh
Um,
yeah, well, just the meaning of flowers, right?
right.
Like
Mhm.
if I really like you, I'm going to give you at least a pink rose. If I really, really like you, I'm going to give you a red rose. If I admire you and respect your purity, I'm going to give you a white rose. If you're my best friend, I'm going to give you a yellow rose, right? So like just the colors of the plants have
Yeah.
so much symbolism in them. And the Victorians were all about that, right? Like it was
Yes,
all
the
about.
symbolism and meaning, and the spiritualists do flower readings uh,
Mhm.
for people as well too, right? So based on the flower
Right,
that
not unlike like a sort of a tea, not unlike like a tea leaf reading in a way, right? And
yeah,
then also some of the names that we know plants by today stem from that. For example, forget-me-nots, right? Forget-me-nots are this like sign of like sweet love. And their literal name is like, don't forget about me. Don't forget that I love
yeah.
you. And that's what
I have
they mean when they appear in, if you dream about them or they appear in your life.
in sessions, people in spirit will show me forget me not flowers and
Oh,
say that they're pushing up these flowers for them, and I'm like, I don't know what they're called, these like little tiny periwinkle looking
tiny
things,
little
and they're
blue
like forget
things.
me nots, and then
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so
I
then they
have
show up
some
like forget me nots, yeah.
Yeah, I have some forget-me-nots on my arms for a friend that passed away. And speaking of magic in this book, I wrote the acknowledgments, and one of the people that passed away was my brother-in-law. And I just wrote something there. It was just toward the end. And the designer took that part of the dedication and put it on its own page with forget me nots around it. And it was just a really beautiful gesture. And I don't
Your
know.
acknowledgments, all of them at the end are beautiful. How you expressed your gratitude for everybody that contributed to it made me teary reading it.
That's the only. So when I got my book, I couldn't even open it. I like held it and cried and couldn't believe the gilded edges. And then I read the acknowledgments because I just needed to see all of the people who had contributed to make this such a
Yeah,
beautiful thing. It's so precious to me. And to
yeah.
have that many people see your vision and make it like surpass what you even imagine it to be is, it's just remarkable. It was quite a
I
process.
always read it. I always read the acknowledgments, just like when we used to get CDs and you'd read the CD cover,
Yeah.
like who contributed to the album. So
Mhm. Yeah.
you read the acknowledgments, um, yeah, I read that first. I read the
Oh, me
acknowledgments
too.
first.
That's great.
Mhm.
I mean, I
Yeah.
knew what happened in the rest, but
Well, it's just I feel you also get to know your author a little bit if you're paying attention as well too when you're listening or when you're reading the acknowledgments, and there's vulnerability there, and all of the different people that, because it does take a lot um, to give birth creatively, and all the different people that support us on those journeys, because
They support you
um,
while you're writing. They support you in the design. They support you by
did you eat
convincing someone to
today?
get gilded edges.
Yeah, just even taking care of your physical needs and emotional needs,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Having
inspiring
you on the
you.
shows.
Yes. Going with you to Ireland.
Yeah, going with me to Ireland, just, support.
Yeah. So, just as we're finishing up, where people can find you next, purchasing the book, all of those
Yeah.
yummy details.
Yeah, so my website is varlaventura.net, and I have all my books linked on there. You can get them directly from the publisher. You can get them anywhere books are sold. They're all available. And then Shadowzine, you can get at shadowzine.com. Also on my website, you'll see appearances. So that's where I have both
Oh, great.
interviews coming up and actual physical in-person events, which is so exciting. I
Yeah.
think I have doing an Instagram live next Monday with Joe
Oh,
Diamond, so that'll be fun. I don't know
oh,
what
fun.
we're going to get up to, but we're going to do something fun.
Oh, that's
Um, yeah, and I have just a couple other interviews coming up over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, if you're anywhere in the New England area and you want to meet me in real life, there's all these library events coming up. So, and I really hope I get to meet you in real life as well. That would be a delight.
I hope we can make that. I hope that we can make that happen. Thank you very much for, again, I know that you've had a very busy, emotionally, energetically, physically, in every way.
Yeah,
You have been pulled in many directions, and that you shared this time with all of us, with our listeners, and with me. I really do appreciate it, and I'm very grateful for all of that.
well, thank you.
Everyone,
I was really looking
is
forward
popping in
to
with
it.
their thank yous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
me
I
too.
was really
Me too.
looking forward to speaking with you and meeting you and just having this conversation. I knew it would be very enriching for my soul as well. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
cannot
you
believe
to
our walls are the same color. I just can't
I
get over
know.
that.
I love it. You can't even really see. I've got like little skulls and some little taxidermy ducklings back there. There's, you name
Oh
it,
yeah,
in the
I've got
package.
some
It's all
typewriters
there.
and tarot cards and skulls and things back there too. So I feel like we mesh
We
really well.
jive.
Yeah.
We jive. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Thank you for all of your questions and comments. I appreciate all of you. You guys really do make the show what it is. I am forever deeply grateful, and sending out endless thank yous to all of you. Next week on the show, returning guest and wonderful friend and astrologer, amazing astrologer, Joni Templeton Skinner. We're going to be talking about like historical astrological things that are happening this year, and how to get ready for all of the duck
Yeah.
and cover and get your blanket forks ready, your
Yeah.
blanket forts ready, folks. And thank you to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM, beautiful New Orleans. Thank you to Joe Montaldo and Michelle DeRoche, our owner and manager. We appreciate you guys and all that you do for us. So have a good week, everybody, and we'll see you next week at 6 p.m. Eastern.